What if I told you that the secret to making a man fall madly in love with you isn't by pleasing his ego, but by shaking it just enough to make him see you as unforgettable? The truth is, the moment you stop trying to impress him and start challenging him, everything changes, and that's exactly where his obsession begins. When a woman challenges a man, something powerful happens inside him, especially if he's truly interested. It's not about being disrespectful or dismissive. It's about showing that you have standards, values, and a voice that won't bend just to keep the peace. Most men are used to being admired or even coddled, especially when they're successful, attractive, or charming. But when he meets a woman who isn't afraid to push back, who questions his assumptions, who calls him out with grace and strength, it disrupts the way he's used to being treated. That disruption grabs his attention. It stirs a deeper instinct in him, the desire to win, to prove, to rise up. Men might not admit this out loud, but being challenged in a meaningful way taps into their emotional core. They don't want someone who agrees with everything they say. They want someone who makes them think twice, someone who forces them to consider how their words or actions affect the relationship. That kind of challenge doesn't threaten a man with true emotional maturity. It awakens him. It's in those moments of respectful confrontation that a man starts to feel emotionally exposed. He realizes he can't just charm his way through this one. He sees that he needs to bring more, do more, be more. And in that realization, he starts feeling something rare. He starts feeling emotionally seen. A woman who holds her ground becomes a mirror to a man's real potential. She becomes a reminder that he doesn't just want to be liked or wanted. He wants to be respected, admired, even a little bit intimidated. That subtle intimidation isn't fear-based. It's the feeling of being in the presence of someone who doesn't need him, but who chose him. That's powerful. It hurts his ego, yes, but not in a way that breaks him. It sharpens him. And the pain of that ego hit often transforms into the deepest kind of admiration. Suddenly, he's no longer focused on impressing her with shallow things. He's invested in proving that he's capable of matching her strength, her depth, her emotional intelligence. That kind of woman lingers in a man's mind. She becomes the one he can't forget. She triggers the part of him that thrives on challenge and reward. And when he sees that her challenge comes from a place of self-respect, not manipulation, he falls. Not because she hurt his ego, but because she awakened it. When a woman isn't quick to stroke a man's ego, it creates a kind of emotional tension that can be incredibly magnetic. She doesn't need to insult him or tear him down to leave an impression. In fact, it's the absence of automatic praise or the lack of constant validation that makes him lean in. When a man senses that he hasn't fully won you over, that you're observing him instead of admiring him blindly, it awakens something in him. He starts to question what you're thinking, wonders if he's done enough, and tries harder to impress you not with superficial things, but with real, intentional effort. It's a fascinating psychological dynamic. When a man's ego takes a hit, even a small one, his natural instinct is to restore it, especially if he values the person who caused that bruise. But if the woman behind that ego dent remains calm, composed, and self-assured, it doesn't feel like rejection, it feels like a challenge. And challenge often breeds attraction. It sends the message that you're not someone who's easily won, that your approval has to be earned, and that you won't hand over your emotional investment to someone who hasn't demonstrated true value. This quiet resistance, this subtle withholding of admiration, triggers the part of a man that wants to rise in your eyes. He may not even understand why he's thinking about you more, why he's checking his phone, or why he feels a little more motivated around you. It's because his ego is unsettled, and you're the one person who can soothe it, not by changing who you are, but by staying rooted in your worth. And when you remain firm in that, when you don't rush to fix his discomfort or prove your affection, you become unforgettable. He sees you as someone with emotional power, someone who doesn't chase, but instead draws people in by her presence alone. That's when admiration turns to obsession, not because you played a game, but because you chose to withhold empty flattery and replaced it with authenticity. You gave him the rare experience of having to step up, not just show up. And in doing so, you became more than just another connection. You became the standard. In a world where ego is constantly inflated by likes, comments, and superficial validation, A woman who doesn't participate in that rhythm stands out. She becomes the one he remembers when the noise fades, because she's the one who didn't need to build him up to make herself feel valuable. She simply refused to place him on a pedestal, and in doing so, she made him want to climb up to hers.
Respect hits a man deeper than compliments ever will, because while flattery may stroke his ego, respect fuels his sense of worth on a much deeper level. Any man can receive praise from people who barely know him, but when a woman genuinely respects him, because he's shown integrity, consistency, and depth, he feels seen in a way that words alone can't replicate. What's even more powerful is when that respect is not given too quickly or too easily. When a woman makes it clear that her admiration is reserved for those who truly earn it, it creates a magnetic pull. A man may initially be attracted to beauty or charm, but it's the respect of a woman with standards that gets under his skin.
When she doesn't laugh at every joke, doesn't validate every move, doesn't act overly impressed by things he's used to being praised for, he feels a subtle sense of discomfort, but it's not the kind that drives him away. It's the kind that draws him in. He starts to wonder what she values, what she sees as truly impressive, and more importantly, how he can rise to meet that. That tension, that gap between what he's currently offering and what she's holding out for, becomes the fire that fuels his pursuit. Respect from a woman like that feels earned, and because of that, it holds weight. It's not disposable, it's not performative, it's rooted in truth. And when he finally gets a glimpse of that respect, whether it's in the way she acknowledges something thoughtful he did, or in the way she trusts him to lead in a situation, he cherishes it. He doesn't take it for granted because he knows what it took to receive it. Flattery, on the other hand, fades quickly. It feels good in the moment, but it doesn't create the same lasting emotional impact. When a woman constantly praises a man without requiring anything of substance in return, he may enjoy the attention, but it won't create depth. It won't make him attach. But when she holds her admiration like it's something sacred, something tied to his actions and not just his appearance or charm, he starts to treat her presence as something rare and valuable. That shift is what changes everything. He no longer sees her as another admirer, he sees her as someone he wants to impress on a soul level. He begins to measure himself against her standards, not because she demanded it, but because she inspired it. That kind of woman doesn't just capture a man's interest, she holds his respect. And once a man truly respects a woman, his love begins to take root in ways that are far more enduring than anything flattery alone could ever accomplish. When a woman withholds emotional validation, especially in the early stages of a connection, it introduces a level of mystery that captivates a man's mind in ways he often doesn't even understand. Most men are used to a certain pattern: show a little effort, get a big emotional reaction, and feel instantly validated. But when a woman breaks that cycle by not giving away her excitement too soon or her feelings too freely, it creates an emotional gap that he becomes driven to close. He starts wondering what she's thinking, questioning if he's making an impression, analyzing her every word and action to figure out where he stands. That mental loop keeps her in his thoughts long after the conversation ends. It's not about playing hard to get, it's about maintaining self-control and emotional independence. When she doesn't gush over every compliment he gives or respond instantly to his messages, it signals that she values her own space and doesn't need constant connection to feel secure. That kind of energy is powerful because it shows that she's not available to just anyone. She's selective, and he hasn't cracked her code yet. This makes her more than attractive. It makes her irresistible. Mystery is a magnet in the world of emotions, especially for men who are used to being pursued or validated quickly. It triggers their curiosity, their pride, and their desire to win. They begin to invest more effort, not just to get attention, but to earn the emotional reward they sense is being carefully protected. The less predictable she is, the more he watches. The more reserved she is with her emotional responses, the more he listens. Every time she holds back just enough to keep him guessing, it strengthens the tension that keeps him hooked. This doesn't mean being cold or detached, it means being present without being transparent, being kind without being overly accommodating. It's in that fine balance where the magic lives. He starts to realize that her emotional world isn't something she gives away. It's something he has to step into with care, patience, and consistency. And the more he senses that, the more serious he becomes about unlocking that space. Because a man may chase beauty for a night, but he'll chase mystery for as long as it takes. The woman who masters this understands that not every moment requires a response, not every gesture needs a thank you, and not every compliment deserves a return. She gives what she chooses to give when she feels it's right, and that autonomy makes her unforgettable. In the absence of constant affirmation, he starts to see her not as someone he can win with charm, but someone whose depth must be earned through genuine connection, and that realization becomes the turning point in how deeply he falls. Men are naturally drawn to women who radiate confidence, but what truly sets a woman apart is her ability to show that she is not afraid to lose him. This energy doesn't come from arrogance or playing games, it comes from deep self-worth. When a woman is clear that she won't tolerate disrespect, emotional inconsistency, or low effort, she shakes a man's ego in a way that either pushes him to rise to her level or watch her walk away. That moment of emotional clarity creates a shift. He starts to feel that her presence in his life is a privilege, not a guarantee. She's not anxiously waiting for him to choose her because she's already chosen herself. And that truth forces him to reevaluate his own behavior. It's not about making ultimatums or giving cold silence. It's about the power of not over-explaining, not begging, not chasing. It's the calm strength in her boundaries that says, I will not shrink myself to fit into someone else's life. That unsettles a man who's used to women bending, adapting, compromising just to keep him around. When she doesn't do that, when she holds her line, protects her peace, and prioritizes her own joy, it makes him see her in a completely different light. She becomes the woman he doesn't just want to impress, she becomes the woman he can't afford to lose. Because in a world full of people trying to win affection by being agreeable, the woman who can say no with grace and goodbye without drama stands out. And this is where the emotional chemistry changes. He begins to chase not out of fear or control, but out of respect. Her detachment from outcome makes him realize that her love is not based on his attention, it's based on how he shows up. When she can walk away from someone she desires because he isn't showing up right, it rewires his perception of her. She's not an option, she's a standard. That shakes his ego in the best way because men are wired to pursue what they feel isn't easily possessed. The moment he senses that she has the strength to walk alone, he stops testing her and starts stepping up. Her independence becomes the very thing that awakens his desire to create safety, consistency, and depth with her. It's not that she's emotionally unavailable, it's that she doesn't make herself emotionally cheap. Her love is expensive, and that's why he values it. When she can detach from needing to be chosen and instead focuses on choosing herself every time, she doesn't just gain his interest, she earns his reverence. She becomes the kind of woman who doesn't fear silence, who doesn't chase closure, who doesn't need external validation to feel beautiful or wanted. That level of self-possession is rare, and rarity is what makes something unforgettable. So when a man meets a woman who clearly wants him but won't lose herself to keep him, it sends a message his ego can't ignore. If he wants to keep her, he has to meet her where she stands. Because she's not walking toward him with desperation, she's walking in her own direction with purpose, and he knows the only way to stay in her life is to walk beside her, not ahead of her, and never behind.
There's something incredibly powerful about a woman who knows how to use subtle power plays, not manipulation, not cruelty, but confident, quiet moments that make a man stop and rethink everything he assumed about her. It's not the loud gestures that shift his perspective, it's the calm refusal to be overly impressed, the way she holds eye contact without flinching, the slight pause before she responds to his compliment, the unapologetic way she says what she wants or disagrees without backing down just to keep the peace. These little moments, these calculated, effortless power shifts, are what flip the emotional dynamic. They tell a man without words that she is not waiting for his validation, and that truth challenges him at the core of his ego. A man's attraction deepens, not when a woman praises everything he does, but when he feels like she sees right through the facade and still expects more. It's when he tells a story he's proud of and she says, "That's interesting," without rushing to be impressed. It's when he expects her to chase after a disagreement, but she chooses peace and distance instead. These are the things that shake him, not in a way that makes him walk away, but in a way that makes him wake up. He begins to see her as someone who won't be controlled by charm or convenience. Instead, she becomes the woman who makes him question how deeply he's showing up, how much effort he's putting in, and whether or not he's offering enough to be taken seriously. This quiet resistance doesn't create hostility, it builds fascination.
It creates a space where his need to feel desired collides with her refusal to chase. That's the tension that pulls him in tighter, because men aren't wired to crave ease. They're wired to crave value. And when a woman holds herself like a prize to be earned, not a reward to be handed out, his desire doesn't just grow, it sharpens. He starts to approach her with more intention, more care, more effort, because she has unknowingly created an emotional standard that demands his best self. And he realizes that if he wants to stay in her world, he has to rise, not just to impress, but to deserve. The key is that she's not doing any of this to manipulate him. She's simply living in her truth, refusing to dim her power for anyone. Her ability to lightly bruise his ego without wounding his spirit becomes the very thing that keeps him emotionally invested. It's a paradox. The more she pushes back when needed, the more he leans in. The more she says that's not enough, the more he wants to give more. The more she remains unaffected by superficial gestures, the more he feels a need to connect on something real. And in that cycle, she stops being just another woman. She becomes the one who rewired his emotional attraction. She becomes the one who made him grow, who made him stretch, who made him love harder, not because she demanded it, but because she never settled for anything less. That kind of emotional power doesn't just hurt his ego, it expands it, transforms it, and anchors it to her in a way he never expected. So in the end, it's not about breaking a man down or playing cold games. It's about understanding the quiet, powerful influence of self-respect, emotional restraint, and unshakable standards. When you stop handing out approval freely, when you hold your ground and let him feel the weight of earning your attention, you shift the dynamic from pursuit to purpose. You become the woman who doesn't just capture his interest, you capture his respect, his obsession, and ultimately his loyalty. By bruising his ego with your strength, not your silence,